Ooh, the man of tomorrow here with you for another weekly Q&A. And like I said, you are getting a deluge of episodes, baby. I mean, you are going to get flooded. So, getting in, I have a lot to catch up for, honestly, even from May, let alone June, on these Q&As. Now, I know what everyone wants me to talk about. Now, you can get in touch with me any way that you know how to get in touch with me. Of course, fu@xxtech.net is the primary way to get in touch with me. Some people still hit me up on Telegram. I mean, I don't know, guys, gals, Z's. Did you listen to that interview with Pavel Durov on Tucker Carlson? I don't normally listen to Tucker Carlson, but sometimes, people message me and say, oh man, you got to hear this, on whatever podcast that maybe I don't normally follow or, someone that I wouldn't normally listen to. And, like if Pavel Durov's speaking, I want to hear what the hell's going on, certainly considering what happened back in September of 2020 or August of 2024, technically. But of course, he's still quote unquote locked up in France. And folks, man, if you don't, you can listen to that episode. I'm not going to get into a full review here, but all I will tell you is that guy is no longer playing on our team. I mean, there is shit in that I did not like. There's some things I did like. Okay. That actually speaks to kind of what we're going to get into here. I loved that he said he actually doesn't carry a phone. Now, admittedly, for a lot of us, that's a privileged position, right? Like, some of us need to have smartphones with us to be able to get done the things we need to get done, to take care of the things we need to take care of, and the people we need to take care of. Phones, like I said, it's like water pipes. It's infrastructure now. Okay. That's a very privileged position to be in that you don't necessarily need one. Okay. And it doesn't have to be money that's the privilege, just your life setup and everything. But is that a worthy goal? Well, like I've always said, for over a decade, true success is being able to be permanently AFK, to be permanently away from keyboard, whether it's a physical keyboard or a touchscreen. Okay. I thought it was also interesting that he uses an iPad. I might talk about that in a second. He said that the two devices that he mainly uses, a laptop and an iPad. And he said the reason he doesn't have a phone is that, he basically said what I have also said for a long time is that it's a net negative. Like it has negative effects. He can't focus, can't blah, blah, blah. And right. Okay. I'm with him on that. But boy, so much of what he said, including our friends, JP Morgan, his words, not mine. Yikes. So we will move right on from that. But I know what everybody really wants me to talk about. I am not going to get into it in this episode, but I just want you to know that I will get into it. In fact, I will get into it this week. And that is the Jewish ! And I've gotten questions about this even before what has been happening in Iran. So it's something I'm going to talk about. It's something I'm going to get into. Of course, it's also, shall we say, a situation, a societal condition that changes by the minute. It's one of those things that, yes, I am tracking, you go to, AP, you go to Associated Press, and you can follow specific stories and just constantly get, refresh the page, get the updates and everything. If let's be clear here. This is war. And the first casualty of war is what? The truth. Every time. Okay. That's not just some cutesy statement as someone who has been in multiple wars, which I have. That is a reality. So, do I read the AP and oh, this is the truth? And no, fuck no. But I am pretty good, I like to think, at reading between the lines. And we will be talking about that, this week. It'll be part of a Q&A, and I'll probably spend the whole Q&A going into that. Okay? So for those that want to hear my stance on that, you could my stances haven't changed. You could probably guess what they are. I might even do a special re-release of the episode that I recorded that was after October 7th. Or October 6th, Anyway, we'll get into that. I'm just going to leave that at that for now. So let's talk about some fun stuff. Okay. Let's keep it a little light on this one. And I don't really plan on talking about AI either, unless it's, very off to the side. It is not a central focus whatsoever here. I had a couple people email me saying like, all right, you're just talking about AI all the time. I'm done. And I'm like, it's like, yeah, but it's what's going on, and, and it's valid and it's important. And people's perspectives on these things so many people's perspectives, I feel, are so skewed. And also I feel like really a lot of the tech journalists who have been doing the business for perhaps even decades, longer than me, they come off as very confused, and I don't hear a lot of reality in what they're saying, and a lot of logic, non-Aristotelian or otherwise. So I feel it important to talk about. I mean, at one point I was going to do like an entire just show called Sovereign Tech AI. Maybe that will still end up happening, so that way that has its place, and then there can be a show. I mean, I'm basically being, I've been compelled and sort of forced to, I mean, I'm not calling it Zomia 1, but to basically restart Zomia 1, that whole network concept, with the amount of things to talk about, because people are at the point, and this is going to play well also into what I want to get into, the questions I want to get into in this Q&A. People are also to the point, like, Sovereign Tech was very much a variety show, as Ellen would say. That's what she fell in love with, besides me. She fell in love with the fact that, like, I would talk about so many different things, and apparently well. I'll leave that to you, but apparently well. And, we're to the point now, I don't know how much people want a variety show. People want very tight packages of exactly the subject that they're talking about, and they just want to pigeonhole people. Now, there's always this desire to pigeonhole people, I think, because it allows for simplicity of what you're engaging, and, in a world which we live in now of seemingly endless choice, when actually it's algorithmically controlled and it's not endless choice. In fact, it's barely choice. For most people, anyway. It's not exactly so, but, that's what people look for. It's like, no, I want this to be about this and shut up about everything else, and to some degree it's kind of always been that way. But now it's so much worse, considering that, I mean, you got to understand, like around the globe, there's like 5 million podcasts going, like at any moment. And, to have something where you're kind of speaking about everything, that's apparently not very attractive to people, unless it's a show that has guests on, which, yes, I've had a lot of guests on recently, and I enjoy doing that with people that I like. I mean, I could do it, I mean, I've had guests on over the years that, again, they tell me I'm the best interview they've ever had, and we're talking about, decently named guests. But that doesn't really interest me. And it's actually, honestly, it's a little disappointing. I don't want to say depressing. I'm not depressed. Not about that anyway. It's a little disappointing. I want that show. Like I want to be able to go and listen to a show like Sovereign Tech was, years ago. I want that variety show. I want to listen to that person, guy, gal, Z, whatever, who just fucking can talk about anything. You know what I mean? Know their place, sure, because none of us can know everything. Okay. And you can only ever have part of a truth, as I've said. And you can never have the truth, the entirety. I really wish there was more people out there like that. And honestly, there's not. So, oh well. But I guess most people, no, they want people talking about their lane or whatever. And in this episode, we're going to talk about that lane, which is, I have people who tell me they want me talking about mysticism. And then I have a whole other group of people who are like, no, shut up about the mysticism and the spirituality. We just want you to stop making fun of Christians or whatever. We just want you to talk about the tech, and ironically, nobody says, hey, Brian, keep talking about anarchism. Because I think I also kind of feel in a very real way, like so much of anarchism is dead. I mean, it's not. There are a lot of groups out there that are still very active. Okay. But in places where anarchism used to actually like be something and mean something, I feel it has very much died. But I mean, Ellen and I, we're still hardcore anarchists. We haven't changed on that regard. But well, anyway, that's that. I mean, look, you even go into like anarcho-capitalist Discord groups and they're like arguing for monarchy. Like, all right, I don't think you guys know what the name of your group means, but whatever, man. And not that that's new. I mean, Hoppe was arguing for monarchy 30, 40 years ago. So not a surprise. Anyway, okay. Let's talk tech. Come on, Brian, get to the fucking tech. It's 10 minutes in. Let's go. You don't want this to go long. Okay, fine. So I had made the kind of open call, like, hey, if you want me to talk about the shit that I use, say like on my Windows machine or whatever, let me know. And I did get a lot of people actually ask me about that. And one aspect that really, I think, deserves like an entire conversation on its own, revolves around music. Okay. Music is something that's very important to me. I don't just love specific genres of music. I don't just love the music that I love. I love music in general. I love art. Okay. And I'm well known for having a very, 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 very large personal MP3 collection in the order of millions of songs. Now, okay. So, and part of the reason I want to talk about this, I'm glad the question came when it came, because I'm also going through a bit of a transition of how I engage with music in general. Okay. So it's a good time to like, it's a fortuitous time, to get into this discussion. Like I said, I have millions of MP3s. So this is a collection that I have built up, for pretty much over 20 years. I've been putting this together. I mean, as soon as honestly, I was downloading WAV files of like TV theme songs in the 90s. Okay. Some of those WAV files, yeah, I converted them into MP3s when that made sense. Okay. I still have them. Right. Which is remarkable to me, that I still have files from a 486 computer from the 90s. Like that blows my goddamn mind. And you got to understand those WAV files. All right. First off, it's WAV, so it's uncompressed. Some of those, they take, on a 56K modem, that would take like a half hour, because you'd be lucky if you could even get, take advantage of the full 56K speed. You're probably getting 28.8 or 14.4. So this is, how do you have a million songs? Well, it's a long time in the making. Okay. Now, I have recently decided, so to talk about what I'm doing for music, and there have been some changes overall in like the music platform landscape that I think are worth bringing up, that if I were doing, something more akin to classic Sovereign tech, I would be talking about it as like a story of the week. Okay. Like this would be a subject that I would go over. So it fits. It's fine. But yeah, there have been updates, to things that I think are worth breaking into. But here's the update with me. And that is like, so I have been, all of those millions of songs, they're actually on multiple NASs, all over the place. And, cause that's how you protect your data. And I will never get rid of that collection, because, okay, here's where I'm going to tangentially talk about AI. Look, I am so impressed by what AI can do with music and in making music. And I use it often. Okay. Like I have a Suno account and all that, and I do all that jazz. All right. So I'm not knocking that at all. And in its own way, what AI, like say Suno AI, what it generates absolutely is art. Okay. And it has human input to be art of a type. Now, the way I like to look at it, if I were to use an analogy, now proof by analogy isn't proof, but this doesn't have to be proof. The way I look at it is that you could see, let's compare it to, say, bodybuilding. Okay. You have like natural bodybuilding where, things like, HGH, TRT, all that, steroids, all that stuff. Like there are specific compounds that just are not allowed for you to be considered natural. Okay. And then there's your Mr. Olympias, right? These mass monsters that are just gigantic. And yeah, everybody knows they're doing drugs, blah, blah, blah. And, using gear, right? As they say. And that's kind of how I see this. You have natural music now. And then you have, AI, which you could consider to be, shall we say, like, it's like using gear, using TRT and all this other stuff. Because I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if bands today in the past couple of years, and I already talked about this on episodes with J-Star recently of Real Time Sovereign, I would be shocked if, musicians weren't using AI to like generate the beats. They'll write the lyrics, they might change a few things here, but to get a general hit, yeah, I bet they're using some kind of AI. To some degree, they'd be stupid not to, right? When we exist in a world that is just inundated with music, and where the way that you kind of get your recognition or potentially make money, maybe you don't make money from Spotify itself, but you make money by getting noticed on Spotify and then, making money off of merchandise and concert tickets and whatever else, is by having a large amount of songs for people to stream, right? To get noticed, to feed the algorithm and so on. Okay. We already know that Spotify themselves are making music. In fact, it's sound-alike songs to where they sound like other songs, but it's close enough to where, they're using AI to do that, so that basically they don't have to pay out artists, like they just feed. It's a feedback loop. Like it goes right back to themselves. Okay. So a lot of the music you're already listening to and you don't even know it is probably AI generated. If you enjoy it, if it does the job for you, is there anything wrong with that? No, the purpose of life is pleasure. So if you're getting pleasure from it, yee-hoo, right? In my opinion, anyway, as a hedonist. So, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, before you think that, oh, Brian's a pro AI, stop. Nuance. Always remember that word, nuance. At the same time, I do think that there is as much as there is a value of how far can, say in bodybuilding, how far can you push the human body, okay, on its own with its, under its own power without, using steroids and other things and, getting into Ozempic and whatever else. Okay. Without, like how far, like there's a value in that. Okay. And there's a value in that kind of almost that imperfection, that freakish fluke. And for many decades now, okay, music has been, for the large part until recently, where the formula was figured out. And really, folks, once music becomes formulaic, it might as well be quote unquote AI, right? Because once you're following a formula, you're not, you're not really like connecting with the divine to make music, right? You're not pulling from your soul anymore. Okay. As it were. And I don't like the word soul either, but we'll use that in the, shall we say, Bon Jovi, Bob Dylan sense. So, because I'm reminded of the lyric actually from the Last Man Standing by Bon Jovi, where it says, the words were more than music. They were pictures of his soul. Right. And he's hitting at that. And I think John Bon Jovi got it completely at that point. Okay. And so we are running into the problem where, and this is even being used, like, understand this, like this same software is even being used to remaster songs now, old songs. And what they do is when they remaster them, it goes through like a perfect pitch, it's like auto-tune, right? It goes through a pitch modulator where it creates the perfect pitch, but in creating the perfect pitch in a classic song, what it does is it eliminates that little, like I said, that freakish fluke it eliminates like that point where the artist's voice, maybe it broke because not because they were a terrible singer, but because their heart broke while they were singing it. And at the time, the producer, the audio engineer, whatever, was like, oh, leave that in. Leave that moment of pure human emotion in. But now the software is killing that and flattening it. Everything is getting flattened. So this is happening. Okay. Now you're going to think in a couple minutes, you're going to think I'm contradicting myself when I'm not. Okay. And what I'll be saying later that has to do with Dolby Atmos. Okay. Preview. But this is happening. It's not happening all the time, and the sad part is also that usually like these new versions, these quote unquote remastering isn't inherently a bad thing. It can be a very good thing. It's a process I actually enjoy doing myself. Okay. But it is, it's something that can be done wrong. Okay. But like these remasters that are being put up on streaming services, they're replacing the originals to where you can't even hear the original version of the song, where maybe like the person's voice broke a little bit, beautifully broke. And that's a tragedy. That's an absolute tragedy that you can't really hear the original, how it was meant to be heard. So don't think I'm like completely pro AI. And to put it succinctly, I think basically from the onset of like ChatGPT, so like from 2023 backwards, okay, this is like where in my opinion, you can't trust music to be entirely, shall we say, natural as compared to, AI steroids. Is that, again, are the AI steroids a problem? No, not necessarily. They can be a very good thing in a multitude of different ways. Okay. Again, nuance, folks. However, you may feel there's something missing. You don't need it, but if it's something that you always looked for in music, it may be missing. And so in that sense, I feel like all of this is to say, this whole long-winded rant is to say that my Plex collection is pretty much up to date with everything that I want and a whole hell of a lot of what I don't want. I'll get to that in a second. To 2025. And I kind of treat that, and again, really it should be 2023, but I treat that as, okay, here's the cutoff for when, like music has become something other than what it was for the previous 100 years. That's the cutoff point. So my Plex collection, I'm very proud of, millions of songs. And, like I'm never going to get rid of that. And I'll explain more. There's other reasons that I won't get rid of it. And it's, it's a good cutoff point because again, the world is changing. The world of music has changed already, but it's changing dramatically. And the incentives have changed. The tools have changed. So much has changed. In some ways, it's not even the same thing. Like I said, there's natural and there's steroids. Okay, in this example. But that said, again, it's not all bad, okay? Because some of the technologies that are software-based, by the way, some of the technologies that have come to fore have allowed music to shine in ways that previous technological limits and hurdles did not allow for, okay? So if I'm not really using Plex anymore, like, am I just going to listen to music from 2023 previous going forward and I'm never going to listen to new music? No, that's ridiculous. Like, that's just fucking ridiculous. Okay. That's just not so. But, here's the thing. So Dolby Atmos, I have been wildly impressed. Not by every album that gets mastered in Dolby Atmos. Okay, Dolby Atmos is a technology that allows music to come from a three-dimensional space. It allows sound, really, because Dolby Atmos can be used for movies and TV shows as well. Okay, and when you go to a true Dolby Atmos certified like movie theater, oh man, you are in for an experience, and I mean that. You really are. Like it's phenomenal technology. Okay. And I have come to, really, really enjoy it. And in fact, for quite a while, I had stopped listening to music that way. Like I started listening to it, and there were some really great classic albums like Diamonds and Pearls by Prince, and some others that were finally coming out when I first got into Dolby Atmos through the venue being using an iPhone and, having AirPods, okay, which are Dolby Atmos certified. And of course, all iPhones have the Dolby Atmos codec built into them. Not every phone has that. In fact, Google's Pixel line is not compatible with Dolby Atmos. They have their own spatial audio, and that's really all Dolby Atmos is spatial audio. That's what they mean by 3D. They have their own, like Google and Samsung created their own open source Dolby Atmos alternative, but nobody's picking up on it. So fuck it, right? I mean, it's, if nobody uses it, it's next to useless. Okay. But in wanting, a really great pair of headphones, of course, I talk about this all the time. I do not like headphones that go deep into my ear. I don't mind little earphones, okay, not in earphones, but I don't mind earphones that like rest on the canal on the outside of my ear. That's fine. There aren't many headphones like that today. Okay. I mean, that type of headphone honestly has existed since the 80s. Okay. They're earbuds, right? And of course they were the standard for iPods forever. The EarPod, right? Well, the AirPod version of that, in my opinion, is still like the greatest pair of headphones ever made. I was not impressed overall with everything that the AirPods 4 was that last year that those were launched, had to offer, but I was, graciously able to get a pair, kind of as a birthday thing. So, this year, and, and they have the active noise cancellation, and boy, that active noise cancellation on a pair of headphones that are, earbuds that are not in ear is insane. I know it's not as good as like a full-on AirPods Pro 2 or, whatever, jam it, into your brain AirPods that you have. I know it's not as good as those, but it is shockingly good. Like I'm stunned at how good that is. And I have tried multiple other brands of earbuds, wireless earbuds, and none of them come even close to the sound and the noise cancellation for the size that the AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation do. I mean, just nothing comes fucking close. It's mind-boggling. And this is no like me flipping or anything. I have a pair of earpods, not AirPods, but earpods in my ears right now. That's what I've always used in the studio forever, for as long as I've been doing SOVRYN Tech. Because I like to be able to hear around me. I want the ambience. Okay. I need to hear my surroundings, or at least that's how I feel comfortable. Is that because I've been in a couple of wars? I don't know, but whatever, that's how I feel my best. I need to hear what's going on around me. So that's partly why I don't jam things into my ears. It's very uncomfortable to do so. But anyway, earpods have always been, and I've said this forever, the best headphones on the planet. Well, when it comes to Bluetooth, AirPods take the cake. Okay. Now if you're going into like, the $300 plus range where you're getting into your big, over ear, earmuff Sonys and Bose and, even AirPods Max and some of like the really high end stuff that goes into the, 4 to 5 digit range, in dollars. Okay. There's better than Apple for sure. Like there's way better than Apple. Okay. But for the size, for the class, the AirPods take the cake, especially when it comes to Dolby Atmos. Now, here's the, so that's what I'm dealing with. Okay. And I am so impressed by Dolby Atmos. And here's the rub. You can't, like, I think there's one website that maybe will let you buy music that is Dolby Atmos certified. But then like you need the player that can do it. Now Dolby Atmos is entirely, yes, it's something that's re-engineered in studio. Okay. But it's something that gets done completely through software. You actually, really, you can run Dolby Atmos through any headphones, but there are still headphones that do it better than others. Okay. Like there's ones rated for Dolby Atmos, just like there used to be THX certified, sound systems. Same concept, even though you take advantage of the THX sound regardless of what you're using. Okay, of course now THX is owned by Razer, but anyway, all of that aside. So, like I would not be able to do basically, I have like Dolby Atmos has so blown my mind, including with some new albums that have come out, in just the richness and the things that, these are albums that I've listened to my whole life that I know so well. I hear things that were there in the master tapes that I've never heard before. And I only hear them through Dolby Atmos and through the right headphones. In this case, for me, it's the AirPods 4. Your mileage may vary on that part. But regardless, Dolby Atmos is like the fucking way to hear music. It's in my opinion, it's so good. So, Plex, like my own library it's not going to work for that, and that's without even getting into the fact that, my metric, okay, my standard for MP3s was CD quality sound, which is 192K. Yes, it is. Shut up. You can tell me you think that 320 sounds better, but for most sound systems and most headphones you can wear, 192 is perfect. So stop. Thank you. Okay. And I'm not going to get into FLAC files. This is the other thing too. We're talking about a collection, a library of mine that is millions of songs. Okay. Now I'm not just talking about me. This is all going to be applicable to you, and you might find this all interesting. That's why you asked me the questions about it. Okay. But like FLAC files, I'd have to have like 8-bay fucking NASs, with I don't know how many terabytes to be able to store that. I can't. Like, it's just not economically feasible for me. Certainly not right now. And, probably never. And like, I wouldn't even want to spend that much money on it. Okay. So effectively, it's to the point that spending money on a streaming service, okay, because there's two things at play here. Spending money on a streaming service makes more sense, all right, because to get that quality of sound, I'm not going to pay for the infrastructure to be able to do that locally anyway. Again, I'm not getting rid of my music collection. I will still download things that are not available on streaming services, okay, or that are really important to me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like what, that new 16 CD deluxe release of Metallica's Load, which is easily one of their best albums of all time, blows away most of their 80s music. There, did I piss you off? Good, email me. Okay. Saint Anger was great too. Eat that. All right. Get it in the YouTube comments, folks. Go ahead. Tell me all about it. All right. Yeah, I'm still going to grab that stuff and make sure that I have a local copy. Why? Because, yeah, I don't fucking trust any of these services. They lose licenses to music all the time. And, this music can disappear at any given moment. So I'm not going to trust them to do that. That's why I'm not going to get rid of my music collection. And why, when I find it, when it's an important enough release, I'm going to put it in. But here's the thing. It got to the point for me where, like, it would take hours, and it was, it could have become a part-time job. Hell, maybe even a full-time job, just to manage all of the music that comes out today. And you don't want to miss something cool that comes out, like, I mean, that's the oddball thing, is that there's two things going on. One is, like, there's so many great bands out there, even if you're just into metal, like there's so many great bands that have come out over the years. And so you want all their releases, right? Because, you might be going to see a concert and you want to know the songs or whatever it is, or you're a fan, whatever it happens to be. Okay. But there's just so much music coming out, and it's not just new bands. Like I told you earlier, all the remasters that come out, which in my opinion, most of them that I experience sound better, sound good. Like I want the remaster more than I want the original. Okay. That's not always true. And I imagine in the pop space, it's probably a lot worse, but in the spaces where there's still like some diehard fans and money, like in metal, you know, those remasters usually come off really well. But that's the thing. Like I basically feel like I'm constantly replacing my collection. Like it's almost like it's eating itself. And it's just too much. Like nobody can manage the amount of music that's getting out there today. I mean, unless it's your full-time job. And even then, I don't know what the teams are like, you know, at Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube Music or whatever, but they got to be working hard. You know, even if I just keep to the few genres that I care about, like, yeah, you can't keep up. So I've stopped keeping up because it was taking way too much of my time. Yes, I would do it while I'm doing other things. You know, it's not something that I would ever like primarily do. Okay. I don't have time for that. I really don't. Okay. Like I have to make money. Okay. I don't make enough. I need to make more. So like, I don't have time for this in the first place, but like, even just from like on a personal level, like it was just taking way too much time. And, you know, compound that with that, you know, like the sound quality that I'm experiencing through, and because I know part of the question is, what are you using now? I'm using Apple Music, and the sound quality that I can get through that is just second to fucking none. And I don't think FLAC files are exactly what, you know, it's not just a matter of like, oh, well, because, you know, Apple Music is using AAC lossless or something. Like, it's not just that. It's also the Dolby Atmos. Like there's a lot involved. Okay. That, I mean, they even have high res lossless, which is another type of FLAC. I know 44.1. Guys, I know, you know who you're listening to. Okay. Fuck, man. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to pretend to you, unlike other podcasters. And there are way too many of those. So in the interest of time, okay, and in getting like the best quality of a lot of these, you know, of a lot of this music, yeah, I have switched to using a streaming service, and I use Apple Music. I also have YouTube Music, but that's because like with Google Fi, you get YouTube Premium and all this shit, and so you know, like you get varying deals with whatever Google services you happen to have, you know, that I got with my Pixel phone or something, and yeah, it all just kind of comes included. Now, one thing I didn't know, I learned this completely by accident about 2 months ago. Okay. And this is actually the other thing that helped me get over this bridge, because it was very difficult to, you know, say to yourself, in this case, me, hey, I know you've been doing this for 20 years. You're going to stop doing it now. Like, you're not going to spend, you know, like the first 20 minutes of your morning seeing, okay, what music is there to download from, you know, 6 different sites? What am I going to torrent? You know, like, or spend however many hours like manually tagging all this music. Cause I mean, my Plex library is fucking gorgeous. Okay. And I'm pretty proud of that. But, you know, it's something where like, we're entering a different world. That time has passed. Now, again, I'm not going to let go of it, because this is what I found. And I'm glad, you know, of course I'm glad I didn't. I never planned to anyway, but I discovered that YouTube Music completely by accident will let you upload 100,000 songs into your library for free. And when I saw that, I got so pissed. And you know why I got pissed? Because why did they get rid of Google Play Music then? Like YouTube Music, when that launched, when they did the rebranding away, when Google shut down Google Play Music, went to the Google graveyard, and they started YouTube Music, which had the most atrocious UI at the time. Okay, it's fine now. It's almost useful. But at the time, it was really bad. The primary feature they got rid of was that you couldn't upload your own songs, because with Google Play Music, you could do that. Now, you know, I did, again, doing Sovereign Tech for over 10 years, I've talked about Google Play Music where I ran into the issue that like when I would upload music, it completely rewrote, like during the upload process, like there was one example in particular where it put Up All Night by Slaughter, and it replaced that song with Nothing But a Good Time by Poison. Like it was just totally fucked up, you know? Uh, so, I mean, fortunately, again, I keep all my music, on with a local copy that backs up to multiple hard drives. But you get my point, okay? But this is what pisses me off. Like, why did you kill Google Play Music? YouTube Music has basically, at this point, become Google Play Music. Now that you have, once again, which is the same limit that Google Play Music had, once again, 100,000 songs of your own that you can upload and access from your library. Now, they bury the library. I don't like that. Like, they really bury where your uploaded music is. That's the thing I don't like about YouTube Music. Also, of course, YouTube Music doesn't have spatial audio or high-res lossless or anything like that. Okay, now you got to get some specific kit to really take advantage of high-res lossless. You don't have to take advantage of Dolby Atmos. You don't need to do that. But YouTube Music just doesn't have that. Okay. And Amazon Music, that has Dolby Atmos. It's the only other one, I think, or other than Tidal maybe, that has Dolby Atmos, but they don't do the whole albums in Dolby Atmos. It's like very specific songs that they will license out that has it. It's ridiculous. Like, that is just the dumbest fucking music service. Okay. So YouTube Music, if you're already paying for YouTube Premium, is a great option, and you can upload your own songs if you need to. Okay. And there's a lot missing. I've talked about this over the years, like one major album, and really I consider this a major album, that none of these streaming services have is Forevermore by Whitesnake, which was their 2011 return album, which is an amazing album. I mean, did insane money, huge tour. Like that is genuinely a big album, and it's a great album. I'm not just saying that as a huge Whitesnake fan. None of them have that. And they haven't had it for years. But fortunately, you can just upload it. Okay. Now, what I learned, and this is what ultimately led me away from YouTube Music as kind of my backup to Plex, was that Apple Music will also let you, through the Windows client, which is an incredibly impressive client. I'm going to talk about Windows here in a second, which was actually what this whole question was about. They will let you upload albums just like YouTube Music does, or just like Google Play Music used to. You can upload 100,000 songs through the Apple Music Windows app. Not through like the site. I don't think you can do it through the site. You have to do it through the actual like Windows app. And it works beautifully. You need to make sure you're hitting upload from library a bunch of, multiple times to make sure every song gets up there. That's a little kludgy. I'm sure it's better on an actual Mac. Okay. And understandably so. But it does the job so goddamn well. Oh man. It's slick. It's really, really slick. So that's the thing. I can just upload, all my Babylon 5 soundtracks, all my Stargate soundtracks, all my, 20 disc Star Trek soundtrack sets. I can upload, Whitesnake's Forevermore. I can upload a lot of the rare demo albums I have. I mean, and, all of these things, which, that's the thing. Like, the stuff that's not on these streaming services is probably well under 100,000 songs of what I actually care about. Okay, that I would want access to on the regular. Again, I'm not getting rid of my library, my 20-year library. That stays. Okay, but Apple Music has really done the job. Not only that, but as of last year, it's just a few months ago, Apple Music on Windows, because, my main machine that I carry around with me, okay, is a Windows laptop, because I have to do very creative work, software that works on Windows and only on Windows or Mac, not Linux. No, I'm not going to run a VM. Stop. Okay. It's fine. I'll deal with using a Windows machine. Okay. And there's a whole conversation to have around that I'm going to get into in other Q&As because people have asked about it. Okay. Yes, Microsoft sucks. Yes, Windows still sucks. Most computers do. Okay. But this gets the job done. Okay, real quick. Here's the deal with Windows. Windows, the operating system, it's gotten better as far as security goes anyway. But it's horrible, right? But nobody uses a Windows operating system, nobody uses a Windows machine because of Windows. They use it because of the software. Like, the OS sucks, the software is the best. And we can quibble about actually what software is best, because Apple does have some better things like Apple Music, right? But the software library on Windows is just, one of the greatest compilations of human achievement. Just is. That's it. End of story. Argue with me if you want, but I'm going to win. Okay. And it doesn't even have to be video games. Like just the amount of shit that you can run and the amount of amazing software that has been made and what's out there and is still available. Blah, blah. I mean, unreal, absolutely unreal. So again, Windows, the operating system, horrible. The software made for Windows, kick ass. For the most part, really. Okay. So all that said, yeah, so Apple Music on Windows. Now my Asus A16 Plus, fortunately has the Dolby Atmos codec and everything built into it, or it has the software ready to go. And so when I connect my AirPods 4 to the Windows machine, like it just instantly knows what to do with it. The sound is just as good on any Apple hardware. And I've compared, okay. I've compared the difference. It's just as good, just as rich. Apple Music, the app on Windows is fantastic. Full functionality, pretty much, including adding your own songs. Because, I mean, Apple Music has been on Windows for a while, but it didn't have Dolby Atmos. And I don't know when they added that through Windows you could upload your own music. Because that was a Mac-only feature, I am pretty sure, for many years. Even from the iTunes days. Okay. And so I don't know exactly when that changed, but I'm glad that it changed. Okay. Because I get to take advantage of this. So, yeah, so that's my option. Now, to actually get, and this is where I'll talk a little bit about like, okay, what software should you use? There is a awesome, and if I think of it, I will link to it in the show notes, but there is an awesome piece of software that you can get. I think you can download it independently, but it's also in the Windows Store, or the Microsoft Store on Windows. And it's called Magic Pods, all one word. It's called Magic Pods. It'll actually work well with basically any like Bluetooth headset. Okay. Like it also does well with my, my Project Rock headphones. And it has profiles for most of these headphones to where the advanced functionality that exists within these headphones, it will take advantage of them. It'll give you the toggles and switches and everything to configure them. In fact, and like it can read battery levels, all that stuff. Magic Pods, this is essential Windows software, in my opinion. Essential if you ever use wireless headphones. So good. Okay. And especially if you use AirPods with Windows, it basically gives you complete functionality with the AirPods. Other than, like, I don't think it controls like conversation aware, like little features. There's little features like that, but the features like, you take them out of your ear and the music stops, you can turn that on and off. You can control low latency, all kinds of things that you can control with the Magic Pod software. Absolutely fucking essential for a Windows machine. If you don't have it, I mean, download it now. It's that good. Okay. So, and I mean, it's a very popular app. It's not something, I'm not going to recommend spyware to you, okay, or malware, because certainly the Microsoft Store can have its problems with that, though even that has become a much better situation lately. It's basically to the point that I actually recommend people install their software either through the Microsoft Store or through WinGet. Actually, you can even use, WinGet UI, or what do they call it? UniGet. That's what it's called. UniGet UI. UniGet UI. Like that can update most of the software on your computer, even if it wasn't installed through WinGet or through the Microsoft Store. In fact, I don't think it handles what's in the Microsoft Store. That you have to go in the Microsoft Store and do your thing. So anyway, okay. Back to the point. So the AirPods effectively become, with using Magic Pods, that software, and having Dolby Atmos, pre-installed on your computer or available on your computer through your sound card. Well, we don't have sound cards anymore, do we? but through your motherboard, we'll say. Once you have all that, like the AirPods become just as good as they are on any other platform, and they sound just as good. Again, they're the best Windows headphones out there. Minus, you're really like your high-end headsets. Of course, that I talked about earlier, that would be just as true on any smartphone, MacBook, or whatever. But on Windows, they work so goddamn well. I'm really impressed with how well AirPods work with Windows, but I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. What I am kind of surprised is how good like Apple's software in general, like iCloud, passwords, all that, how well all of that works on Windows. In fact, it's creepy that Apple's software on Windows is some of the best Windows software on the planet. It's weird, but that's a separate conversation perhaps for another time. Okay. So, yes. So I use Apple Music. I turn up the beautiful thing about having, a laptop with all that hard drive space and everything else is I turn all, and you're usually connected to Wi-Fi. I turn up all the settings to high. You can download through Apple Music. You can download, even Dolby Atmos songs. You can download them to where they can be played locally. That is really cool, to have that functionality to where if you're not connected to the internet somewhere, of course you can do that on a smartphone as well. But again, you can have a massive library if you have a big enough hard drive on your laptop to be able, to really do that. So that has, Apple Music has become like my primary, music service. Okay. Now, Apple Music's available for Android, but if you have your Apple ID account locked down properly with like a YubiKey and everything else, good luck getting it to work on an Android device. I have to admit, okay, just for the AirPods and Apple Music alone, I am so tempted to break. I mean, I keep my iPhone around anyway, but I'm so tempted to make that more of my daily driver again, just because just that sound quality is so rich. It's so good. It's so beautiful. Now, you might not feel the same way. Again, I have a very deep passion and connection with music. I always have. Okay. I was the kid whose audio cassettes were constantly getting eaten by my Walkman, constantly, because I was listening to the music, playing it over and over again, constantly. Think like the Bodyguard soundtrack or Mortal Kombat, the album, or, the Power Rangers, the album, or, like all these, or Richard Marx or Rick Springfield, all these different, and of course, Motley Crue and whatever else too, but and Michael Jackson, Prince, all of them. Like my tapes would constantly get eaten. It's so funny. I can take apart an audio cassette and put it back together, and everything, in my sleep, because I did that so much. Same was true for VHS. That's why I was so excited when DVDs became a thing. It's like, oh, good. My tapes aren't going to get warped anymore. You can kind of get away with it with audio cassettes, but when it gets into VHS and to video cassettes, oh no, you start seeing warping and everything. And suddenly, like Aaron Gray has lines going through her and it's like, oh, God damn it. Anyway, so these advances are a great thing. Again, you have to have the right combination. And that's why I'm talking about this. You have to have the right combination to have all of this make sense. Okay. But once you have it, you're in for an amazing time. And I didn't even get into like high res lossless and how to, play that really well. That's a whole other experience. That's really, really gorgeous. Okay. But that's even going beyond, I think, well beyond the computer and the smartphone when you want to do that right. Okay. I think a lot of people, or one of the emails that I got was asking if I was using Jellyfin instead of Plex at this stage. I've tested Jellyfin multiple times. The issue I keep running into with Jellyfin is there's very specific ports you basically run into where, like, to run Plex even through my NAS, I have to run a VPN that will open up the ports for that to work successfully, particularly through Starlink. Okay. And I also run into this issues with connectivity overseas. So, like a VPN becomes essential for setting this stuff up. Now I could use Tailscale, and I did do that with Jellyfin for a little while because this is the other problem with Plex, getting your Plex library to like categorize music correctly is an atrocity. Like, it's horrible, and it's only gotten worse. It's so bad. So I'm just as happy getting away from it. Jellyfin does a great job though, where when you tell it, I want you to run off of my metadata, my ID3 tags, it will do so. And it does it beautifully. I really, really like Jellyfin a lot. I would definitely use that before I'd use Plex. But the issues I have there is, some of the ports to allow for external access to Jellyfin. There are, in the way that my NASs are set up, like it just doesn't fly. Like, again, unless I use Tailscale, but Tailscale itself is a VPN connection. And yes, I think you can run VPNs like within Tailscale itself. And I guess that I could do that. I hadn't gone that route, and now I don't really need to. Okay. Like I think you can run like Mulvad, say, through Tailscale. But then I'm not 100%. It's something I would have to look into. So if you want to look into it, of course you can. But like there's specific settings. Mulvad is the VPN that I use. There's specific settings within that I want to make sure that I have, and that I'm not sure that I'd get through Tailscale. Particularly, like one of the main things is, again, I'm going to talk about AI for a second, and then we're going to wrap this up. AI, quote unquote, is being used now to scan network traffic. And it does an incredibly good job at it. Okay. Something that VPN services, decent ones, so I don't mean ExpressVPN, unless they're going to pay me. No. Decent ones will have a function where they basically will literally add data to make a consistent, they'll add data to your data packets to your network traffic to throw off this AI monitoring. Okay. On Mulvad, let me see what they call it. It's like DAITA. That's what they call it. What is this? A defense against AI guided traffic analysis. That's what that means. Okay. So I turn that on, and of course I turn on quantum resistance. Like I run a VPN pretty much all the time. So again, using Tailscale wouldn't exactly fit the bill because there's very specific settings, lockdown, kill switch, like those are all things that I have very specifically turned on. I'm also running through NextDNS. So there's a lot of, network traffic security features that I need where I feel like Tailscale would be kind of antithetical to that. But if I didn't care about any of that and I just had Tailscale, running, then yeah, I would have been using Jellyfin for years, honestly, and would have gotten away from Plex a long time ago. But this is where we are. And again, I've really come to the point where, because this is the last thing I'll say. I had gotten to the point where like I'm managing a music library and I'm never listening to music because it takes so much time to manage the music. And I'm never really enjoying the music. And when I finally went back to, after getting AirPods 4 and, like, all right, let's see how good these things sound, testing them out. Let's open up Apple Music. Let's put on the Dolby Atmos. How does it sound? And then just breaking into tears over hearing the music so beautifully, and actually listening to the music again. It was just a moment of realization, and this speaks to a much broader thing that I think I've brought up on other shows, and maybe I'll talk about more in the future on whatever show it happens to be, real-time sovereign or otherwise. But like, there's just too much. Like this, it's just, even if you're just in one genre, like if you just listen to folk music or something, there's so much goddamn folk music out there now. Like, and I'm not saying it's bad music. It's just like, you can't possibly like really be truly knowledgeable about that space. Like, it's just not possible because there's just too much. You're always going to miss something, Now, can that allow for a moment of connection where someone introduces you to a piece of music that you never knew before? Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. I mean, the whole reason that I got into torrenting in the first place, 20 years ago, was because there was music that I had incidentally heard that was not purchasable in the US. So I had to torrent it, and that was the other reason that I was always still downloading music. Is like, you never know when you're going to accidentally find, because it's not going to get played on the radio. It's not going to, probably not going to come up in whatever streaming service you're using. It's not going to get recommended by YouTube, at least not at the time. But you never know when you're, when you're going to run into a Beast in Black, right? Which is one of the greatest bands of all time. You never know. And they haven't even been around 10 years. You never know when you're going to run into a Michael Palace. You never know when you're going to run into a a band like Reckless Love, or Crazy Licks or something like that. All these, or Battle Beast, these top tier phenomenal bands making some of the greatest music in human history, blowing away 90% of everything else that's out there. Okay. And you only find out about it because he's like, oh, well, that looks interesting, on this music download site. Right. And so, it was a way for me, downloading music was also a way for me to discover new music. Now, so what now? Like, am I not going to discover new music? No, that's not true. First off, the streaming services have gotten quite a bit better about their algorithms. In fact, Apple Music does a particularly good job on this. Second of all, yes, I want to discover new music when it hits. At the same time, I want to listen to music. Like, I want to memorize it. I want it to fill me completely. Okay. You can take that out of context and enjoy yourselves tonight on that one. That's what I want. And, worried that I miss out on some kind of music or something, like, is a worthless worry when I'm not actually able to take the time to actually listen to music, to sit down, do nothing else, but just enjoy a fucking album. And that's not even getting into, this is the other part too, is like, albums are dying, like the concept, and I don't mean the CDs and the records. I mean, like, the structure of music release that is the album, whether it's MP3 or whatever, is dying. And most people are just putting out singles now. You know how much of a pain in the ass it is to organize all these fucking singles? Forget it. So it's just something, like, the music industry has changed, and the way that you generally would experience music, and that software like Plex and others were built to organize the music in the way that music has been done over the past 100 years or 50 or whatever, that's gone the way of the dodo by and large. And so that software isn't prepared to handle those kinds of libraries. As to where the streaming services are, because that's where the action is. And, in the last, all right, I know I kept saying last point. All right, really, last point, because we're over an hour. Like Ellen said, or like Ellen has told me, like, the reason she stopped using Plex for a bit, and the reason she did is because, she did want whatever market signal was possible to get to the artists that she loved. And I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, she and I go to plenty of concerts. Okay. We'll put our money where our mouth is, where our passion is, for sure. All right. They got us already. So just saw Devin Townsend again in May, and man, what a masterpiece, that guy. So, but whether, even if, say the artists only make a few cents off of 1 million streams or something, at least they can get the recognition, perhaps from, whatever makes money in the music industry, or whatever attention they need to make money off of it. They can get it from the amount of streams. And I think she's right. I think there's real value in that. So, Spotify is a bullshit system, like, it really, really is. We could complain about that all day long. But it is like the best, it is maybe the best and even like easiest way, to show that support, to the artists. And I don't mean using Spotify, obviously I'm using something else, but you get my point. Okay. And yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is to buy their merch and go to the concert if you want to support them, of course. But it's not zero sum. You can do both, right? And I think that's a fair point to bring up. So those are my recommendations with music. I definitely don't recommend Spotify for a bunch of reasons. Okay, like even the artists themselves don't like Spotify. YouTube Music. Again, if it's something you're already getting with YouTube Premium to kill the ads, like, of course, go ahead and use that. But my recommendation to experience music, like, in its best form, pretty much is, Tidal is out there, or Apple Music in that sense. And if you are looking to just do your own collection, you only want to listen to certain albums or something. You can upload your own shit to YouTube Music or to Apple Music. Okay. But yeah, then if you can, use Jellyfin. Like, if you're able, with the network connection that you have, you're not using Starlink or anything like that, if you're able to connect, to be able to use Jellyfin remotely, like, by all means, that software is so mature and it's so good. And I mean, Plex still does its job. So, use that as you wish as well. But those are my recommendations. okay, overall about music. And this is also where I'm at with music. So maybe some of you will find that interesting. Of course, you ask the questions, so I answer them. But that's where we're at with this Q&A. And I hope I dropped some other interesting nuggets for you within this. And but we'll wrap this up here, and I will see all of you on the other side. Lots of more shows to come. Lots of more on the way. See you on the other side.